Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Inner Sanctums YouTube channel. And joining me, Stephen Poletti, once again is Eric Subijano from Football New South Wales. You would have heard his dulcet tones across plenty of NPL games this season, but especially NPL New South Wales women's games. And we are here to talk about the NPL New South Wales women's grand final. And so, who better to join me than Eric, who basically lives and breathes this competition, don't you, Eric?
Yes, I do. Sometimes I make the joke that A-League Women is just something that happens during the NPL New South Wales off season, but that's possibly a thing that may annoy a couple of people. So let's move on.
Yes, indeed. So what we have to do here is we have to take you all the way back to the final round of the season, round 22, because that actually sets up the semi-finals quite nicely. So we will start off at North Turramurra Recreation Area, where Sydney University took on Northern Tigers. Sydney University coming into a little bit of a skid on this one and walked away 4-2 winners, securing, or actually making the Northern Tigers have to sweat as to whether or not they would make the finals, because that loss put them in fourth place with no guarantee of a spot in the finals. We then go to Lambert Park, where Apia Leichhardt taking on Macarthur. Macarthur already guaranteed themselves a spot in the finals, but were playing for a home final at Linwood Park. While Apia needed a win to secure themselves a finals spot. And kicking off just 15 minutes after Apia and Macarthur was Sydney Olympic versus the Blacktown Spartans, featuring Abby Lemon, which will make Eric Subijano very, very happy. And Sydney Olympic needed to win in order to make the finals. So it all set up really nicely, especially given that Sydney Olympic game was delayed 2.5 hours due to a venue change. So it all set up quite nicely. Now, Eric, you were at Lambert Park. Tell us
hmm
how the atmosphere was there that night.
Yes. So I did get there early after the game I called, which was Bankstown City versus Football New South Wales Institute. So everyone was keen. They already had by the time I got there, Tigers Uni was in progress, and they already had that up on the screen in the Joe Marston Pavilion. And not for the first time I mentioned this, I was drinking some lovely red wine, courtesy of the fine folk at RPA Leichhardt. And so we were able to watch that. It just really wasn't Northern Tigers Day back in round 22. And really, as I think, as you said, they had to end up sweating on other results because Sydney University just swept them aside at North Turramurra, which is a very difficult place to play, with the wind getting up there as it tends to do, and it is a very exposed location. But back casting our eyes back, Collie Caspers with a double, Rolla Bardawea with a lovely free kick goal, and Kush LaRue came off the bench, and the first thing she did was take a penalty very nicely. So it was pretty convincing for Uni that day. And Northern Tigers, they had a couple of late goals, which from Ashley Brodigan and Abby Green, that kind of added gloss. I kind of felt on that day Tigers didn't deserve. So they had to sweat on events at Lambert Park. If we go on to that one, yes, I remember having a chat to Stephen Peters, the Macarthur Rams coach, before the round 22 game, and he said, "Well, I had to leave out players who are on 4 yellow cards." So that was Bethany Gordon, Melissa Caceres, Alex Kuhn, and Kylie Ledbrook. And so that obviously changed the whole dynamic of the team. Also, Lauren Keir, unfortunately, has been injured these last few weeks as well. So a very understrength Macarthur Rams side. It wasn't their night on round 22, and RPA Leichhardt got the job done with 2 second half goals. An incredibly, now I suppose we could say now, a trademark ice cold penalty from Sarah Hunter, and then a nice finish from Sophie Hoban, and that goal set up by Sarah Hunter. So Apia was safe, but Northern Tigers in the end saved, in a way, by Sydney Olympics fixture congestion at the end of the season. So if we go back to the latest game at Seymour Shore Reserve, I mean, of course, I'm glad that you mentioned the main headline, which is Abby Lemon scoring twice, but that was Olympics' 9th game in 29 days. So almost half the season in less than a month, and it really showed. I think that day they had a bright start and then just faded away, and the second half performance was from the Spartans, who've had a rough season themselves, was too much for Olympic, and so they just Olympic just missed out in the end. I think it was Alyssa Rose, I think, with the other goal for Spartans, and a consolation goal near the end from Chiara De Demizio, one of the Olympic young wingers. But yes, it could have been. We'll get onto this, but Tigers, really turned things around last weekend, but it was so close they could have potentially not even been in the finals at all.
Yes, it was a little bit of luck and a little bit of good fortune for the Northern Tigers. And yes, you mentioned that the third goal there for the Spartans was scored by Alyssa Rose and not Rosie Galea, as I called on the night. I got my roses mixed up.
Mm-hmm.
It was 9 games in 29 days, and we saw what happened earlier this year in the A-League women's competition, where Melbourne Victory had, again, fixture congestion and had to run out a number of games in less than a month as well. I think it was 7 games in 30 days or something, which was, so it's not the first time we've seen it this year. And it just really caught up to Sydney Olympic, and you have to think, what probably could have been for Olympic, right?
I do. They're. I mean, not that it's for me to speculate, but they were unlucky. So to illustrate the chaos of this NPL New South Wales women's regular season, Olympics round 1 away trip to Illawarra Stingrays was postponed, and that didn't get played until 4 days before the end of the season. So we just it was that was out of their control. A couple of other washouts out of their control, and I do wonder if they had the option. My understanding is a couple more games were postponed due to international call-ups. It did result in them not playing between the 26th of June and the 17th of July, which is a large gap. And I do wonder if they might regret not, playing one of those fixtures just to avoid having the pile-up at the end, which I think cost them finals.
Yeah, I mean, if you play one of those games, you get a draw in there. That actually, I think a draw would have been enough to secure them a result on goal difference on Sunday night.
It may have, or at least freed up the legs for better performances in the other games, which is maybe that could also have been something that happened for them.
Yeah, but that was the wrap up of the final round of the season, and so we move on to the semi-finals. And I said that we needed to go back to round 22 because, surprise, surprise, two of those final round games were exactly what we got in the finals. We've got Sydney University against the Northern Tigers, although it was Sydney University on the hosting duties this time around, but it was at Valentine Sports Park, while Macarthur had to make a trip to Lambert Park in consecutive weeks. And you were also at that one, Eric, and I believe you have a story that involves a little bit of red wine.
I mean, maybe some people wish it was just a little bit of red wine, but in fact, it was a lot of red wine. Actually, I should put some context on that. After the round 22 game between RP and Macarthur, they all knew what the score was. They knew they were going to. And everyone was just like, see you next week. It was quite funny. Then they did see each other next week. Also, at the end of that round 22 game, I basically ran onto the field like a somewhat deranged person and showed Darcy Malone my Melbourne City jersey with Malone on the back. I just felt it was right because her parents saw it the week before she did, so I thought I'd better make sure she actually showed it. So she liked it. For what it's worth, Sarah Hunter liked it as well. But then so that not the first time I run onto a field after a game at Lambert Park, by the way, but onto the second game. So after turning up early for the Raisies game and starting drinking my red wine then, which may have been a mistake. I felt RP Macarthur, by the way, a rare Saturday night game in NPL, which I really love. It was a slow burner in the first half. I think the two teams were kind of feeling each other out, but then it really livened up in the second half, and the Rams, they took the lead. They'd shown some signs that they could trouble Apia with the high press, and they did win the ball up high, and Lena Karmas, who we know so much for goal scoring, but has actually had quite a few assists this season for Macarthur, she set the ball up nicely, found Laura Murtagh in acres of space, and Laura Murtagh, the Rams' top scorer with, I think it's now 11 for the season, finished beautifully. So Macarthur were looking good, but as I always say, NPL New South Wales Women's is the competition that brings a lot of late drama, so there had to be a twist, and there was. 15 minutes from time, Deborah Ann Delahaff set piece falls to Shay Connors, the league's golden boot. She finishes. It's 1-1, and then it could so easily have been Macarthur winning it at normal time. There was a big one-on-one save by Sarah Langman against the Rams player Melissa Caceres, and then Laura Murtagh chance right at the end of the 90 minutes, which went wide. It goes to extra time, and then there's so many close calls. Nikki Flannery had a shot which was deflected just wide. Macarthur had periods of pressure as well, but the game winner was absolutely spectacular. And I was lucky to be right behind the flight of the ball when this was struck, and it really was just Bethany Gordon who'd profited from some good hold-up work by one of the substitutes, Crystal Duggan. She made some space, and then just this beautiful 25-yard chip over Sarah Langman into the top corner, completely unstoppable. So Bethany Gordon certainly doing Blacktown proud with that goal. It's really a contender for goal of the season, and a brilliant way for Macarthur to make their first grand final since 2018. But the intensity of the game was something else. There was a lot of ill feeling. Sorry, not a lot. There was ill feeling at times on the field. It was very physical. A bit of ill feeling in the Joe Marston Pavilion while I was drinking my red wine. I was very happy to be there, so I was not hot tempered at all. But yes, it was one of those games. Where you love finals football, it's really physical. And then my second pitch invasion after the game, where I full of red wine, told Darcy Malone's attention, and I told her I was so proud of her, and I may have used more interesting language than that.
So you're getting a 6-month ban from Lambert Park, right? That's
no, they love me. They love me down there. That's fine. They're fine. They're fine. I'll be back when at the next season, I'm sure, because I think my Claudia Chico fandom has helped very much in that respect.
Yeah, it's generally getting behind the star players will do that for you.
Yes.
We then turn our attention to Sunday's game. It was Sydney University against Northern Tigers, this time at Valentine Sports Park on field number 2. And if you're wondering where that beautiful background is that we have on this video, that is a picture I took a few weeks ago of the sunset over field number 2 at Valentine Sports Park. So if you haven't seen it, this is the field where that game was played. It is a gorgeous picture, honestly. But it was kind of the reverse result, where the Northern Tigers absolutely came out and dominated this game and basically put Sydney Uni to the sword. And I guess if you're Emily Husband, do you have to sit back and think, did those 2 late goals really actually impact the result of this game?
I mean, I don't know, just not sure what happened. I was speaking to people after the game. I mean, Sydney Unis we could get to. They've had a lot of injuries. They've missed Taryn King and Claire Hunt for large parts of the season, and other players that have been injured as well. And I think the feeling was amongst certain people that it may have just caught up to them. But this was definitely a shock for me, especially given the results of the week before, where Northern Tigers were really, I think they were really very clearly the better side, Shadeen Evans with 2 brilliant strikes, I think, in the first half, and then setting up the third goal for Beth Bernardi as well. And that was pretty much it. Sydney Uni didn't, especially after the third goal went in, they didn't really have much in the way of response, and Northern Tigers able to ride it out and keep the clean sheet. But it was interesting. Great on Northern Tigers, who lost an epic grand final to Sydney Uni in 2019 on that very patch of synthetic turf, and were also eliminated by Uni in the 2020 grand final. So they did get some measure of revenge. And for this Northern Tigers program, they're one of the more recently promoted teams to the top flight, and the fact that as I count the Okay, as I count the completed seasons, we've had 6 seasons, but only 5 of them were completed. They've made 2 of those grand finals, which is very impressive.
Yeah, it is. Anytime you can go at, well, let's say that would be, given that completed seasons, this would be a 40% success rate of
Mm,
making the grand final
mm.
itself. That's a good clip to be going at, and if that's going to be the case, then I guarantee. Well, you could say that if the math checks out, then the Northern Tigers are going to be in and around the grand final for years to come. Now, Macarthur head coach Stephen Peters, how do you think he's going to talk to his side in the lead up to this game?
I think they're a side that has a lot of self belief, and they've got a lot of experience. And he's from speaking to Stephen, he's really. I mean, he knew he had to get the buy-in of senior players. So you've got the Karma sisters, Alex Hewen, Kylie Ledbrook, etc. And I think he's really done a great job. Firstly, if they're getting them on board, and so they get the younger ones on board, like Darcy Malone, the wonderful Razzler behind me on my background. Also, younger players like Holly Williams, who's really stepped up, been a tough tackling defender. Also, Madison Mccomoskey, who is what we lovingly call a college Matilda. She's back in Australia after spending time in US college soccer, and McComiskey's done a great job at both central midfield and central defense. So he's got them on board. He took over at Macarthur, did Stephen Peters after a year when they finished, I think, 10th in 2020. It was very un-Macarthur-like and very unlike that club if you've been following this competition for a while. So he turned them around, had them in a good position last year at the time of lockdown, and he's really continued that form. And it's been, like of course, the Karma sisters are real stalwarts, but when you can bring in players like Alex Hewen, Isabel Gomez, and elsewhere, he's found great form out of Laura Mortag, who's had her best ever season, I think, in goal scoring terms, and is into double figures as a winger, which is quite impressive. I think it's really that he's got all these players to maximize their potential, or like kind of reach levels that they haven't had before, and this is the result.
Yeah, and I would imagine that they are going to put out a fantastic effort on Sunday afternoon. But on the flip side, you've got the Northern Tigers, and they kind of were playing second fiddle most of the season to a dominant Sydney University side who they pipped to get into the final, and almost did it by the skin of their teeth, despite locking down second spot for most of the back half of the year. How are they going to come into this?
Yeah, well, they've shown some, they have some very good players themselves, Northern Tigers. So look, all eyes will be on Shadeen Evans, after that spectacular double last weekend. But you also have Ashley Brodigan, another high-scoring winger, another winger into double figures, and Ash Brodigan is very dangerous from set pieces. She's even scored from a corner. She's done an Olympico this season. So there's players there, but I think about Tigers, they've got. This is one of my nice facts. They do have, or we expect them to start, Hannah McNulty and Josie Wilson, who started for Northern Tigers in the 2016 NPL 2 New South Wales Grand Final. They would have still been in high school at that time, and they both scored as Northern Tigers defeated Inter Lions. So the fact that the Northern Tigers have a couple of NPL 2 OGs is really wonderful to me, and it's been great because for Northern Tigers to be here, I like to call I think of this grand finals that's like something old and something new. Macarthur have been big, it seems like forever, but Northern Tigers, their first season in the top, their first promoted to the top flight for the 2017 season, had a couple of seasons with lower half finishes where they were just establishing themselves, and they really exploded in 2019 where they finished third and then almost won the grand final against an incredibly dominant Sydney Uni side that had players like Courtney Vine, Julianne Russell, Tora Tumeth, Charlotte McLean, Claire Wheeler, of course. And so it really shows just how much they've developed. They've been able to bring young players through a lot of the time, but then they've also been very shrewd I think, Northern Tigers with their signings from outside the northern suburbs and even from interstate. So this year, Abby Green's been brilliant, whether it's left back or left wing, and she's been very creative, has had a lot of assists. Again, Malia Steinmetz, the Kiwi international, whether she plays centre back or centre midfield, she really stands out, and not just for that bleach blonde hair. You got also things like Isabel Gomez, who was at Football New South Wales Institute, but is a Northern Tigers junior, so she came back to the club. She's like Steinmetz; she can play centre back or centre midfield, and all these players. I think Maddie Bart's another player who grew up in the area and is I think grabbed 8 goals from midfield, which is a fine return. So I think just the way this squad has been constructed, and it's the thing that hasn't been the work of one season. It's taken several seasons for them to build. I really like what they've done up there, and I'm a big fan of them, although perhaps not so much with this particular background that I have right now.
You can't help the players that you love, and you want to showcase all those particular players. And I guess Stephen Peters, he's going to have most of his players back. He had them last week, and the same thing will happen this week, which he didn't have in round 22. I guess, how hard is it going to be for Stephen Peters to narrow down his starting 11?
To narrow it down, I think, look, with the possibility of extra time, I'm kind of expecting the same 11 as I think I'm expecting the same 11 as in the semi-final against Apia, although I think Holly Williams started on the bench that game, and she'd be a good starting option if he needs. So I think he's pretty much he would know what he's going to do, but he also knows that he has options off the bench. So I think in the build up to Beth Gordon's spectacular winner on Saturday, you had Holly Williams and Crystal Duggan, 2 subs involved in the build up. So I think what he can do is he can, of course, tell players that you might not start, but I might need you later on, and you this is the kind of game where you'll be needed. And of course, you can make 5 subs, which is not a post-COVID rule. You always could do that in NPL New South Wales Women's, at least as long as I've been watching it. So it's a squad game, and I think the players know by now that, especially because they got a reasonably deep lineup there at Macarthur, that just because you don't start doesn't mean you can't really have an impact on the way things happen on Sunday.
Yeah, and then I guess conversely for the Northern Tigers, I would assume it's going to be a very similar thing. They're going to put out kind of the same starting 11 as well.
Yeah, and they're at. It's interesting how this will work. I mean, I suppose it's a grand final. If the players will be up for a grand final, Macarthur have the extra day rest, but they also did play 120 minutes, so maybe it just cancels out. But yeah, Northern Tigers, they're another team that has been pretty settled, I think. So I wouldn't expect too many changes to be made by their head coach Jack Stevenson. So really, it's just going to be a fascinating battle, and I think because they both play 4-3-3, it does kind of match up all over the park. So then we do get to see those fascinating individual battles, and that I think that'll be the thing that decides it on Sunday.
Yeah, like that formational battle should prove to be quite interesting. Now, I do want to get your thoughts on something, because I did mention this in the lead up with the 2-player interviews I did for the NPL New South Wales Men's Grand Final, is that this game is booked for VSP, but it's not field number 2, it's field number 1. It's the turf. And we know that with the NPL New South Wales women's competition, a good 95+% of the games are played on synthetic. Do you think that the turf, like switching from synthetic to turf, might have an impact on the way these sides approach it?
That's an interesting one. That's a very good question, as they are 2 teams that play on synthetic normally. So, and I'm thinking, because synthetics changes their age, but from memory, Linwood Park and North Turramurra Recreation Area are about the same age in terms of the surfaces. So yeah, we will see who's sharp and who tells their players about this surface change. I imagine that they'll both be prepared, and they'll both really be focusing on the warm up, kind of to see just to see how the ball runs, because of course it's different with natural compared to synthetic. So hopefully, enough of a chance for them to do a proper warm up, on the grass, because there is the Resi's grand final at 12, and that there is, of course, the possibility that goes to extra time and maybe even penalties. It's happened in the past, and then how that affects the schedule and squeezes things, we don't know. But I'd like to think, given what you've said, that there's time for the two teams get allowed time for a proper warm up on the grass pitch, which would mean them delaying first grade if we have to.
Yes, but of course, Football New South Wales does reserve the right to move from Field 1 to Field number 2 synthetic, which was put out in the release announcing the schedule in the event of inclement weather. So the turf could very much play a non-factor depending on weather conditions. Eric, I'll get you to pick your impact player from Macarthur. Who do you think is going to stand out the most and is going to be the most instrumental for a Macarthur victory?
The most instrumental for a Macarthur victory. Great question. See, with Ashley Brodigan being the team's top scorer, and she set up one of those Shea Evans goals on Sunday. So that impact player, I think Paddy Charalambous played at left back on Sunday. It has been doing that for the last few weeks, although she did play further forward earlier in the season for the Rams. But that Charalambous-Brodigan matchup is definitely going to be one to watch on Sunday. And of course, Charalambous takes a very good set piece as well. So in terms of the impact, Charalambous, not just a big job to nullify Ash Brodigan and kind of stop her from getting going, but Charalambous can overlap, of course, from left back, and she could still, despite being despite my expectations of her being a defender on Sunday, she could play a role in an attacking sense as well.
Yeah, I definitely think that's a fair shout for Charalambous. Who do you think is going to impact for the Northern Tigers?
Oh, I wonder if this is if I'm going to have the amount of thinking time that means you need to edit it out. So I feel like I then can't mention Ash Brodigan now. So impact player. Oh, this is. I think I was going to say Abby Green, but that's two left backs. Yes, so you may need to. What am I going to?
While you're thinking, I'll give.
I got it. Okay, you go. Okay. You go. No, you go first.
Okay,
you go first.
I think it's going to be Malia Steinmetz. I think the way that she is going to dictate the way play is in the middle of the park. We know that she's a scoring threat, so I think it's going to be Malia Steinmetz with that bleach blonde hair, which will stick out on the broadcast, so you'll be able to see exactly who you're looking at.
Yep. Yeah, she does. It's that bleach blonde hair is certainly a commentator's dream. Thanks, Malia. But I will pick Maddie Bart, the Tigers all-action midfielder. I mentioned her goal record, but her fitness and work rate is incredible. Like if this does go the distance to 120 minutes, there's every chance Maddie Bart is still running up and back, up and back, up and back by the end of that. So she scores goals, does tremendous work ethic. And yeah, like these kind of things where forwards are easy to mark and they do get a lot of the attention for obvious reasons. But how Maddie Bart times those runs from midfield, which she has done so well for a number of years now, that could be very important for Northern Tigers.
Yep. That's definitely a fair choice. You mentioned, of course, the reserve grade grand final taking place before it. That's 12 o'clock kickoff. It's Football New South Wales Institute against Sydney University. It hasn't been the best of seasons for Football New South Wales Institute in the first grade, with a lot of injuries, international call-ups. A lot of youth coming through the system. Why do you think it's been different for the reserve grade?
The reserve grade, I feel like the age gap isn't as big in the reserve grade. So the institute players are still the youngest in the competition, but I think they're not playing against adults and A-League women players. So this reserve grade, some of whom have actually received Junior Matilda's recognition, and I believe there's some of them that have went to the AFF Under-18 Championship in Indonesia. But if Football New South Wales traditionally, as you would expect or hope, they are traditionally strong in the grades below first grade. I think they made the finals in every grade except first grade, which sounds about right. And so, they were really good. I actually did see them on Sunday against in their reserve grade semi-final against Blacktown Spartans. By the way, just to close off my red wine story, I actually recovered better than I thought I would. So some kind of well-timed Panadol on Saturday night after the game, and a lot of water both Saturday night and Sunday, and I was actually fine despite the sun shining in my face when I got there. So that was a shock to me as well. But yes. Anyway, back to that Institute Spartans reserve semi-final. So Spartans actually had dropped down a couple of players that I recognized from first grade, such as best mate of Abby Lemon, Annie Dachko was there, and a few others. So, which is, they're allowed to do within the rules of the competition as long as they played a certain number of reserve grade games, is my understanding. And but the Institute were just brilliant. They're rushing out to a 3-goal lead and ending up winning 4-2. So they'll be very young, but it's kind of like it's the same thing that you would see from an Institute first grade team in the reserve team. Just these players that are very good on the ball. They're quick and already at such a young age, it's impressive to see how well they interchange. So this will be a good one. And I believe this is Institute Uni. It's the same two teams in the reserves grand final as the last one, which was in 2020. I believe Uni won that one 4-1. But yes, on the part of Uni, it's just they're so deep. They're the club that can just more than any other, I think, have the ability to plug in reserves players into their first grade side when necessary, so they can do a job. Then that's happened actually a number of times this season already for the Uni first grade side. So that'll be a great game. And for their part, Sydney Uni, they beat Arpia Leichhardt 2-1 in a very, hot-tempered, shall we say? Apparently, was the theme of the day. A very passionate reserve grade semi-final against Arpia. So Sydney Uni will certainly be ready, and I expect less hot temper because they're playing the kids at Institute, but it'll still be a great game.
Yeah, you picked out there the the fact that both those sides dominate at the lower levels, and I think you can see that with the finals throughout the weekend. I think off the top of my head, I think every game features either Football New South Wales Institute or Sydney University, except for the first grade final. That's off the top of my head, so don't quote me on that. But yeah, so the reserve grade grand final, it's Football New South Wales Institute versus Sydney University. It's 12 o'clock kickoff. Can I get a prediction for that one from you?
I will go. See, I think I like Sydney University for that one.
I'm going to go Institute. I think the fact that, and that's not just to be disagreeing. I think I don't think you can go past home field advantage. I think there's going to play a role in the fact that it's a VSP, which is the home of Football New South Wales, will help Institute get the victory there. That game does kick off at 12 o'clock on Sunday, and it is the Serbian Martin Tyler, Nikola Pozda on the call for. I was not expecting that reaction from you, but yes, it is the Serbian Martin Tyler, Nikola Pozda on the call for that one. That is on NPL TV, powered by Clutch. 12 o'clock kickoff, so tune in for that one. And that will be followed at 3 o'clock, we expect, by the first grade final, which we've talked all about here, Macarthur Rams versus Northern Tigers. I'll get a prediction for that one as well, Eric.
Yes, I am not tipping against Darcy Malone. Those of you that follow me on Twitter, you might be able to speculate as to which player would need to be on the other side for me to tip against Darcy Malone. The fact is, Northern Tigers do not have any such player, and so I think it's going to be...
They do have one Abbey, though. Is that enough?
They have an Abbey. They do not have the Abbey, with respect to Abbey Green. So that maybe I might change my mind if it turns out that Abby Green's mum is an excellent photographer. But for now, I'm going with Macarthur Rams to replicate the glories of 2018 and win the grand final. By the way, I think that I was reminded of this. This is a third versus fourth grand final, and so as far back as I can go, I can research back to 2010. That's what I can find easily. And in this period of time, that's the first grand final to not feature either of the top two sides. So it's been that kind of year where it's things a little bit unexpected have happened, and so we'll see a team from outside the top two win the grand final. But yeah, but that doesn't mean, of course, despite finishing outside the top two, these two Tigers and Rams, of course, very good sides.
Yes, they are indeed, and I think you just have to have a look at the way the ladder played itself throughout the year to show exactly why these two teams are sitting on top to end the season. Okay, now this one is going to be strictly argumentative. I'm going to go Northern Tigers.
Mm-hmm.
This one is strictly argumentative. I think that I've got to go against Eric. Right, we can't
Mm-hmm.
we can't
Yes, you
agree
have.
on this, right?
Mm-hmm.
That one is 3 o'clock kickoff, also on NPL TV, powered by Clutch, and it will be Teo Palazzari and Grace Gill on the call for that one. So if you can't make it out to Valentine Sports Park on Sunday, and I would highly suggest that you make it out to Valentine Sports
Mm-hmm.
Park on Sunday. There's plenty of parking, there's plenty of seating. I would expect that the nice little food truck will be open, and you can get yourself some nice mini Dutch pancakes, which are
Mm-hmm.
absolutely delicious, as Eric can attest to, and I can
Yes.
attest to as well. So check out the wonderful facilities out there at Valentine Sports Park. But if you can't make it out to Valentine Sports Park, you can watch both games, NPL TV, powered by Clutch. So that will do us for our NPL New South Wales Women's Grand Final preview. Eric, thank you once again for joining me.
No problem. Thanks so much. And of course, if you are planning to, if you do end up attending and you want to say hi to me, just look for forearm tattoos and a Matilda McNamara jersey. So I should be fairly easy to pick out.
Yes, absolutely. There's a story behind that Matilda McNamara jersey, isn't there?
I thank you so much for indulging me. So, I have an Adelaide United dark blue away kit from last season with the McNamara on the back in reference to the player I sometimes call Tilly Mac, so Matilda McNamara. And there was one game on an incredibly wet weekend where I somehow stayed dry and also had a good call, and I decided I stayed dry because of the Tilly Mac jersey, not the two jackets on top of the Tilly Mac jersey. So then I say a similar situation 3 days later in a catch-up game, and so it became my good luck charm. And then the jersey was really solidified as my good luck charm when I wore it for the Clutch Radio call of the NPL New South Wales Men's Grand Final, where the Blacktown City, the pride of Western Sydney, defeated Manly United 2-0. So yes, my dark blue McNamara jersey is definitely a good luck charm, and I shall be wearing it on Sunday because I suppose let's just say I am trying to arrange my own commentary gig with another platform for that. So I want all of that to go well.
Well, we will certainly keep an eye out for that one. I plan to be there as well. I don't have a Matilda McNamara jersey, but I stand, basically above everybody else at 6'4", and I have a very distinct look about me. So just look for the idiot wandering around with the glasses on, and I'm sure you'll be able to find me if you want to say hi. But thank you again, Eric, for joining us. And remember, you can watch both the reserve grade and the first grade grand final on NPL TV, powered by Clutch.